So we're working through Shin Lamed Vov, and today we're going to discuss very interesting shilas, walking on grass and these sort of things, and also what about having drinking on grass. So for example, you want to have kiddush in the garden and things like that, and you get shilas like this in hotels, that they have some nice gardens and they want to have the kiddush out there. Is there a problem because it's quite likely that drinks are going to spill? So what's the story? So take a look at Sif Gimel, Shin Lamed Vov, Sif Gimel. You're allowed to walk or to go on grass, whether it's wet or dry, because you're not intending to be tailish, to uproot the grass, even though it may happen, that's not your intention. But if you're eating in the garden, you can't wash your hands, let's say, over the grass, because you're watering the grass. Even though that may not be your intention, it's inevitable.
I never understood that. Why is it not psik ratio on the first thing?
Oh, we'll see. But you're allowed to put urine there, or to urinate over the grass, because it's not matzmiach. Says the Ramav, and therefore it's good not to eat or drink in gardens. If you've got liquids there, because it's quite likely that the water is going to spill. Okay, so let's have a look at the details. Some very interesting things. So Ben Lachim. So the Mechaber started off in Shin Lamed Vav Sif Gimel that it's muter leilech al gavi asovim. You're allowed to walk on grass on Shabbos because you're not mischaven litleish. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chavdalad, u'mashim begemara shafilim asovim heim arukos. Even if the grass is quite long, v'hul hoilech yochef, and he's walking barefoot, so you've got all the ingredients to pick up the grass, because it's long grass, which is more likely to be detached, and you're walking barefoot. And therefore you can get sort of stuck between your toes, and therefore it's likely to be pulled out. Still, you're allowed to walk barefoot even in long grass. It's not inevitable that there's going to be tlicha, that's going to be detached. And therefore, even if you do, there is no issa, because that's not your intention. But if after you have walked there, you notice that there's some grass between your toes or on your shoes, careful not to take the grass off your shoes or from your feet, because these grass that have become detached are now muksa. Why? Because at Ben Hashmoshes they were mechuba to the ground, they were attached to the ground, and therefore they're now muksa. So what is the reason? It's not your intention to detach the grass. If the grass is long, you've got to be careful not to run on them, to have a psik reisha, because then that's a psik reisha. It's inevitable that they're going to come up. And even if you're going to walk quickly, and therefore to try and avoid the tailish, it's still you got to be careful. So in 12, he says an interesting thing. You might be melamed schus and say, look, there's a whole bunch of reasons why it's okay. He says in 12, you're running in the park, and even if the grass is a bit longer, like, what do you care? It's the psik reisha d'lo nichale. You don't care if the grass is detached or not. Val kolponim psik reisha d'lo ichbasle. You don't get benefit from it. You don't care about it. Vatlisha nasis beregel kelach hayad. You're doing it the kelach hayad. All of the ingredients to say that it should be okay, etc. Nevertheless, that we're concerned that you might come to be tailish grass that are bothering you, that in your way for running. Especially when it comes to ball games, if you picture cricket, you want to make sure the crease is smooth so that you don't get any nasty, unexpected bumps and you're going to get bowled out. So there is that concern. True, every single step is not a psik reisha. We're worried if you're running in the grass, then there might might be a problem. Okay, so just to summarize, in terms of walking in grass, the Mechaber says you're allowed to because it's not a Pesik Reisha, and you're not mechaven to it, and therefore it's not a problem. Even if it's slightly longer grass, even if you're walking barefoot, you're allowed to walk on grass. However, what you should be mindful of is, says the Mishnah Berurah, that if it's longer grass, and not to run on it, because running is going to cause it to detach more, and that's why there's ball games on Shabbos is a bit of a problem, especially if the grass is a bit longer, and AstroTurf is the way forward. Okay, but then let's go weiter. So then we said, but eating on grass is a problem because asurim little yedei malasov. You can't wash your hands in the garden over the grass because you're being mashke the garden. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chavov shemashkim oisom fa'mashkes hazroim, and if you water the grass or the vegetation, chayv mishum zoreya, you've got a problem of zoreya d'moelat smiach, because it's encouraging it, it's helping it to sprout. For gam mishum chayrish, and there's also a problem of chayrish shemerapio hakarka alichluach, that you're softening the ground, and that's part of the chayrish problem. So pouring water on grass on Shabbos is a problem not only of zoreya but also of chayrish. Now, and there it's Pesik Reisha, says the Mishnah Berurah, because it's just inevitable. If you look at 17, he says, where is it? Oh, actually, let's come back to that in a second. What about eating in a garden that's not yours, or somebody else's who you don't really care if his garden looks nice, and you're in a park, let's say, or whatever. Yesh matirin, there are those who are matir. Because now it's a Pesik Reisha lo nichale. I'm not particularly bothered if this patch of grass in Hendon Park is going to look nice. I don't really care. So shori aflechat chila, that would be allowed. So let's take a look at 17. A couple of things. So first of all, it comes out that I know, for example, in the Normandy, they sometimes have kedeshim on the grass there. I always wondered about that. How could that be? So it could be that this is the heta, that it's in a situation where it's a gina she'ena shalai, it's not yours. Then it's a Pesik Reisha lo nichale, and there are grounds to do it. Okay, so generally speaking, in your own garden, you should try and avoid. You can drink in the garden, that's not a problem. But if you've got lots of guests, then you have lunch and just relocate your Shabbos table and you put it in the garden, then that could be a problem because it's inevitable there are going to be spills. If you put some plastic down, of course, that's different. But if it's a gina she'ena shalai, then there is more reason to allow it, and therefore sometimes I remember Shavuos, I think last year, or whenever it was. I was walking in Hendon Park. We were back from whatever, and I see like there's a picnic in the park. It was quite cool. A lot of families are having Yom Tov Shei on the second day. They were having like their Shabbos lunch some shul had like a picnic in the park. So it could be that's another svara to be matter. It's because it's gina she'en shalei, and therefore there's reason to allow it. Another interesting shaila is we're just on the back of sukkahs. When sometimes you have some sukkahs that you open up the roof. Yeah. And then it spills onto the grass. So that 17 deals with that. Well, the Indian Golker shall be sukkah shepsichos noiflim imenu mayim al admas hagina. It falls onto the garden. Das are going to listen karelis shem kvayordu geshamim beginezu. Yeah, which is inevitable here in England. Yeah, it's quite moist the ground because it's already wet from rain. You're allowed to open it, even though it means that rain is going to fall off or the water is going to fall off onto the grass. In other words, if the grass is so wet anyway that your extra bit of water is not going to add so much, that could be a tzati materit. However, he says, but just try and avoid it going to a place where rain hasn't fallen.
We'll get somebody who's not his sukkah.
Right. Maybe, yeah, or open it into your neighbour's garden, right? Yeah. That's very thoughtful. Yes. What we do for halacha. Now, also another question is, what about if you to spit? Because spitting, you're basically there's liquid going onto the grass. So you're allowed to spit. If you're going for a walk in the park and you've got some saliva you want to get rid of, are you allowed to spit it out onto the grass or something like that? So he says there in 17, at the end of the second paragraph, the lyric b'Shabbos k'tzas roik al azroim, to spit on over vegetation, das hagonim nissen karedet shemuta. It's actually allowed. Interesting. Kiven sheb'k'tzas roik ein chashash hatzmoch azroim. For that little bit of spit that comes out, we're not really worried that it's going to cause the zroim to sprout. And that's not the normal way of watering the grass. That's not that. We're not really worried about any of that. Is not recognizable in any way. Its benefits. That's not your intention. You just want to get rid of the spit. So therefore, to spit in a situation like that would be allowed. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotzen Chovches. So he said that you can't pour water over grass, but meiraglaim is allowed. Why is that? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Chovches Lefisha al Azimheim. They're very strong. Meiraglaim is quite potent and strong. V'serf mesazroim u'meinu mesom melat smiach. It has the opposite effect, and therefore there's no problem of zorea. Why it's not a problem of choresh? Maybe it also doesn't soften it up so much. I'm not sure. Aisha mashkim she'en matzmichim. Dahainu kagoin yain, not only meiraglaim, but also wine and things like that. Lefisha oz v'chozok v'serv gamkein hazroim v'chein shah mashkeshu keinze. Yeah, it could be that Coke as well maybe is allowed, because they use it as oven cleaners and things like that. So maybe if you have a meal over the grass, not with water or orange juice, but just with Coke or wine, maybe that would be okay. But one should be careful generally the mashkin. But if it's very strong wine, again, we're not really worried about it. Okay, it's a honey drink and other types of liquor. They've got high liquid water content, and therefore there'll be a problem. So this is the end of this is the Ramah. He said, the Ramah says, you try and avoid, having a kiddush or lunch or something in the garden over the grass if there's going to be lots of liquids there, because it's inevitable that things are going to spill. Kosuv hataz, the beginner sheyesh ba yosem meshivim amo. A separate issue, if you've got a very large open expanse like a park or something, to have a caramelis and it's very big, lo mahani bashum hekaf, even if it's surrounded by a fence or something, if it's so big, you've got a problem of carrying. But also botilzel daladamas. With Shabbos we're talking, of course, not Yom Tov. So even in your friend's garden, then there'll be an issue because there's a separate problem of hotzah. Okay, Dalet. You got to be careful not to throw zroim in a place where the rain falls, because that could take root and it could sprout. If you're going to just put out some seeds to feed the chickens, we were last Shabbos, we were invited out somewhere, a very choshev person, a Rav of the Kehillah. I was very surprised, he had his chicken in his garden. And so these are, halach l'maisa. So you can feed the chicken, you can put some seeds out for the time of Golim. But only put enough out that they can eat for that day, or for 2 days. But if the people are walking there, then it's not a problem. Because people tread on it, and therefore it's not going to sprout. It says in the Mishnah Berurah, Dalet, b'mokum yudas geshamim, sif koten lamed aleph, rotzolema shehamokum hahu lach mipnei geshamim sherogel leirecham. It's a rainy area. V'uadin shar mekomis lachin ki hagavna. So careful not to put the seeds there because it might take root. Because it's soft, they might take root and they might sprout. Over a period of time, they will take root. But when it comes to feeding chickens, you can put seed out, but only enough that they need for a day or two. The bizman mu'at kazer lo yitzmuchu, because for that short amount of time they're not going to take root because the animals will eat them. But if you put enough out for 3 days, then that's enough time that the chickens may not have got to it yet, and therefore it may well take root. and then retrospectively you over zorea. V'gam lechader b'yerdeh sim rish tani gimel kol shia hashrosha ein el shloisha yamim, and therefore if it's not going to be there for 3 days, then it's going to be okay. V'dad the marish lahashich ezram b'pamachas. We're throwing it in one shot. Ilav hachi also lahachim miyom chol. Yeah, otherwise because you're going to be doing it for yom chol. Let's just do one more. We've got dalad. Hey, we can do quickly. Asovim she'olu al oizin hakli. I sometimes find that if you keep a kli outside in the garden, you get what's it called? Growth on the side, moss on the side of the kli. Asovim she'olu al oizin hakli milachos hakli, because of the moistness of the kli. Chashuvim k'mechubarim lekarka. So if it's that could be considered mechubar lekarka, v'hatol chayim, and therefore if you're moving it, it could be a problem of toilish. Says the Mishnah Berurah Lamed Kamoshe Motzu B'dli Sheshavim Beitomid. Like you've got a bucket, imagine, and sometimes it gets very moist, and therefore you've got some moss on the side of it. Gedelim Beikamin Pitria, so you've got other things growing, mushrooms and things. Chayiv Mishum Oikedovim Megidulei, V'hu Teledes Kaitz, and it's a problem of Kaitzeh. V'lo Domil Otzit Shein Enokov. It's not like an Otzit Shein Enokov, which has got no hole in it. Atelish Mena Potter Mishum Dein Mechubel Karka Olam, because it's not Mechubel Karka. That's different. The Shani Hasam, the Ein Derech Zriya Sham. It's not Derech Zriya. Masha Ein Kein Hachad, the Ika Gidulin Kein, who Adin Atelish Kishus Mehizmi, Vehigi, Pirish Kaitz, all these thorns and things like that. Afal Pisha Gama Kishus Ein Mechuberes the Karka, Filu Hachi Chayiv Mishum Eikedov Megidulei. That's a problem of Eikedov Megidulei. Okay, Peseda. All right, we'll leave it there.